Let's make 3 dishes with 1 daikon. We'll make a pickle dish, a simmer dish, and a pan-fried dish, all from 1 daikon. Let's get started. Along with the 3 cooking methods, I'll also show you how to slice it, cut it, and grate it. Daikon is a massive radish that can be used in a variety of ways. First, let's split the daikon into thirds. With the tip of the daikon, let's make a quick pickle. Let's set the other 2/3 aside for now. Daikon pickles would be eaten as a side dish with dinner or in a bento, and they're super simple to make. Give that a peel, cut in half, and then in quarters lengthwise. I have a plastic container here which I'll grate directly into, so I can just pop it into the fridge. Slice thinly. Break those apart if they're sticking together. Once you're happy with the amount you have, let's add the pickling agent, which just salt would do. But in this case, I'm going to use some shio-kombu. It's salted kombu that looks like this. You don't need much. This is about 10 grams or so, or a couple of teaspoons. If you can't get shio-kombu, just salt would be fine. Mix that together, and the pickling process happens really quick. Moisture has already started to come out of the daikon, which is a good sign. The only other seasoning we will add is a teaspoon and a half of sesame oil for fragrance. Grab some chopsticks so your hands don't get oily, and stir it together. And there we have the beginnings of our pickled daikon. We'll set that aside for 30 minutes, and that is the easiest dish I think I've introduced on this channel. While that pickles, let's move on to the simmered dish, pork and daikon nimono. I make this dish almost on a weekly basis because it's so easy and satisfying. For this recipe, I'll use the middle part of the daikon and peel it, cut it in half, and then in quarters lengthwise. Cut it into large chunks about 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch wide. You should end up with nice wedges like this. We'll simmer this in 2 parts. First, we will boil the daikon on its own and let it simmer for 20 minutes. So let's get out a large frying pan or a pot, add in the daikon, and cover in water. Bring that to a simmer, and let that simmer for 20 minutes. While that simmers, let's slice some ginger. Skin on is fine. And that's all the prep we need to do for this recipe. Super easy, right? 20 minutes later, the daikon should have softened and become slightly translucent. If you poked it with a fork or chopstick, it should pierce it, but a little resistance at this point is fine. Let's strain and let that hang out for a minute while we cook the pork and build the simmering liquid. In a clean frying pan or pot, add some vegetable oil. Add in the sliced ginger first. You don't have to toss them in like you're dealing cards. In fact, don't.
Yo.
Give those a brief saute until fragrant. Toss in thinly sliced pork. I have a mix of pork belly and pork shoulder here. Both have a good amount of fat running through them, which is what we want. Cook until the pork changes color. Add 2 tablespoons each of sake, soy sauce, and mirin, a tablespoon of sugar, and a teaspoon of dashi. Cover that with about 200 milliliters of water. Toss in the daikon. Stir it in so the daikon is mostly submerged in the braising liquid. Bring that up to a simmer. Cover for 7 minutes. Open it up and give it a stir. Let cook for another 20 minutes or so until the simmering liquid has disappeared. Once it's looking like this and the daikon has started to take on the color of the dashi, it's ready. We can set that to the side while we prepare our pan-fried dish, Daikon Mochi. It's grated daikon that's turned into a chewy dumpling, but despite the name, there's no mochi in it. It's a Chinese dish that goes great with drinks. So let's take the last third of the daikon, grab a large bowl and a grater, and grate. Unlike the previous 2 recipes, this is quite labor intensive. Keep grating until you run out of daikon or your arm hurts. Here we have the grated daikon. We will need to squeeze out as much moisture as possible. Grab the daikon solids and squeeze. You should have a nice ball of daikon like this. Continue this until you're left with just the vegetable solids. So much work for so little daikon. But it is delicious, so worth it, maybe? We'll add some green onions, so dice those and toss them in. For flavoring and color, these are sakura-ebi, which are little dried shrimp. Toss those in, or omit them if you want to make a vegetarian version. Season with a teaspoon of soy sauce and sesame oil. Give that a mix. You can taste the mixture, so you can adjust with salt and pepper if necessary. Add 2 tablespoons each of flour and katakuriko starch. Mix that all together until smooth and forms a sort of paste. To form the dumplings, grab a spoonful of the daikon and just smush it into a flat patty. Set the patty on a tray dusted with starch. Looks like we got about 5 patties out of this amount of daikon. I'll dust the top with a little starch and pat them to make sure it's evenly distributed. Set aside for about 5 minutes. When it's time to fry, heat a large frying pan with vegetable oil. Add in each patty. Cook them for a few minutes on each side. Give them a flip, cook on that side too until brown. The dumplings will firm up but should still have a chewy texture. Once golden brown, set aside on a rack for the oil to drain. Now that everything's ready, let's get ready to serve. The daikon pickles have become malleable and the shio-kombu has rehydrated. To serve, just set it in a little dish, and that's it. The simmered pork and daikon we will serve in a bowl, and top with some green onions. Finally, the Daikon Mochi we will set on a plate and sprinkle with some sesame seeds to accent. Alright, and there we have it. 3 dishes with 1 daikon. Pickled, simmered, and pan-fried. Let's give them a taste. Let's start with the pickles. Just in a half hour they got really malleable, but they still have a nice crunch to them. Really nice. Here we have our daikon nimono. The daikon has become nice and soft, lots of flavor. Let's try our Daikon Mochi, which we'll dip in a little soy sauce and vinegar with mustard. It's chewy, flavorful, so good. So there we have it, daikon 3 ways with 1 daikon. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see more recipes with daikon. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and maybe check out this video next. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.